At number 10, Kanye West. Most people see Kanye West as a little too extra. He's caused scandals like his VMA interruption with Taylor Swift, his comments about George W. Bush, as well as many other instances that have just rubbed people the wrong way. To add to that, he's reportedly very hard to work with. During filming of Anchorman 2, Kanye came on set for a brief appearance in the film, and though he played a small part, he left a big impression on the cast and crew, and it wasn't positive. Apparently, after Kanye wrapped on set, he refused to leave. He could have just gone home after he finished his scenes, but he decided to stick around. That's fine if you want to stay and watch other people's performances, but that's not exactly what Kanye did. Instead, he hung around set blasting music so loudly that it disrupted filming. People tried to get him to just leave, but he wouldn't. I think it's safe to say that if a third Anchorman movie were to happen, Kanye just would not be welcomed back. At number 9, Lea Michele. Lea Michele was exposed in 2020 for her Hollywood mean streak and for her terrible on-set behavior. This all came out following a tweet from former Glee co-star Samantha where she let the world know how horrible it was to work with Lea. The actress is now described as, quote, callous, rude, mean, and even a diva. But following Samantha's exposure of the Broadway star, other people have come forward with their own testimonies regarding Lea and her mean streak. There have been stories of Lea's microaggressions, but also stories of her spitting in craft service food that she doesn't like, refusing to work with people because they didn't know her middle name, requesting reshoots because she didn't like her costume, disrespecting other castmates, and having crew members apologize on her behalf, and so many other frustrating tidbits that just really show how rude and entitled she's been known to be. No one wants to work with her after learning about how much of a nightmare she can be on set. Before we carry on talking about the celebrities who are just the worst people to work with on set, why not take a moment to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 8, Julia Roberts. Even though Julia Roberts seems like a nice person, it turns out that she's a nightmare on set. Ironically, she's almost always cast as nice and endearing characters, but there's seemingly much more to Julia than meets the eye. Apparently, she's known to have a pretty bad attitude on set, which can make working with her an unpleasant experience. In 1991, on the set of the Peter Pan film Hook by Steven Spielberg, Julia earned the on-set nickname Tinkerhell as a play on her character Tinkerbell. She earned this moniker based on the production staff's perception of the actress. Apparently, during filming, she would constantly show up to set late, and even when she was on set, she would lock herself in her trailer for hours on end. She also reportedly treated people badly, and she would never apologize for her mean actions or behavior. Julia was truly the opposite of the pixie she was playing. At number 7, Mike Myers. Does anyone else remember the Cat in the Hat live action film from 2003 starring Mike Myers? I certainly do. It was very cringy, but in a good way, since I was a kid back then and I found everything unbelievably hilarious. I enjoyed that movie as a kid, but one person who didn't enjoy it was the Cat in the Hat himself, Mike Myers. After the success of Austin Powers, Mike was set to bump up his comedy and star in a production based on one of his old characters. But before that was all carried out, the actor and the studio got into some debates, and there was legal trouble. It was all just unnecessary drama. Well, they both ended up reaching an agreement, and it obligated Mike to star in the Cat in the Hat movie. He never wanted to sign up for that, and he really made it known how badly he didn't want to be there. According to people who worked with him on set during filming of the Cat in the Hat, Mike was very rude and dismissive, and he refused to talk to anyone. He became a hermit and a diva apparently, and this whole experience and subsequent film were all so bad that Dr. Seuss's widow said that she would never allow Hollywood to make another movie based on one of Seuss's books again. At number 6, Emma Roberts. Emma Roberts has had quite a few on-set feuds with co-stars. She's had drama with Gabri Sidibe, Ariana Grande, and Evan Peters, but the biggest feud that she's had was with Lea Michele on the set of Scream Queens. According to sources, Emma Roberts and Lea Michele had one strong attribute in common, and that was the fact that they were both divas, so while they were working together, they butt heads with each other quite often. Apparently, their fighting got so bad while filming, actress Jamie Lee Curtis had to step in and mediate the hostile situation between Emma and Lea because she was so fed up with their constant bickering while they were trying to work. It was also reported that the actresses would constantly have mean girl moments, making rude and catty comments towards each other almost daily. Rumors of this feuding between them were pretty common in entertainment news while Scream Queens was still in production, showing that things never really died down between the two actresses. It seemed like Emma just caused a heck of a lot of drama with a lot of people on set. At number 5, Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf has really been going through it in Hollywood. He kind of has a bad reputation now because of the conflicts that he's been in, the latest of which got him fired from a movie. Because of his bad attitude and clashes on set, the actor was fired by Olivia Wilde from the upcoming film Don't Worry Darling. It was announced in late fall of 2020 that Harry Styles would be replacing Shia in the film, and now we know that it was due to Shia's alleged bad behavior, as people have cited that the actor was, quote, not an easy guy to work with. It was alleged that there was some kind of conflict between him and Olivia Wilde as well, and the fact that other cast and crew members didn't like working with him, Shia was let go. Getting fired is always a negative thing, but in Hollywood, when a lot of your work involves other relationships with other actors and having connections, having a bad experience that was enough to get you fired can ultimately burn that bridge and result in you having less work. At number 4, Ben Stiller. A lot of people think of Ben Stiller as this super funny guy in Hollywood, but just because someone seems great in the public eye doesn't mean that's how they really are behind closed doors. It seems as though Ben Stiller is a nightmare in disguise because he's a tough guy to work with and he causes a lot of trouble on set. People who know or have worked with Ben in the past have exposed some of his bad behavior on set, and it's kind of shocking. According to those who worked with him on the set of the film Tropic Thunder, he was very controlling and mean to just about everyone there. He even reportedly had a meltdown on set when someone brought him his Diet Coke and it didn't have exactly 2 ice cubes in it. He even had someone fired because they didn't put enough sugar in his coffee. On top of that, Ben even forced his assistant to stand out in the parking lot in his designated parking space, even though it already had a sign saying that it was reserved. And to make matters even more hectic, Ben also freaked out on a female assistant he had, going so far as to refuse to come back to set until she was replaced by a male assistant. If all of this madness happened on just one film set, who knows what other shenanigans have gone on elsewhere with him. At number 3, Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase is known for being in National Lampoon and the show Community, but is also known around Hollywood as being kind of a jerk and starting drama with the people that he works with. There are a bunch of articles, books, and interviews of people talking about their experiences with the actor and how mean he can be. There are even stories in the book Live from New York that detail the times Chase has been mean to staff, writers, interns, and other hosts. Will Ferrell and Bill Murray are among those who have taken a disliking to Chase because of the way that he's treated others. Will Ferrell has said that he doesn't like Chevy because of the way that he treats some female staff members, and Bill Murray and Chevy Chase even got into a brawl backstage of SNL back in the day, where they said some pretty hurtful things to each other because they were kind of comedy rivals on the show. Chevy just doesn't get along with everyone, and he said it's because his fame went to his head, but something tells me that's not the only reason why he starts drama. At number 2, Bill Murray. Bill Murray already has a pretty bad reputation in Hollywood for his poor on-set behavior, so it's no surprise to me to find out that he's had some serious drama with one of his castmates on the set of Charlie's Angels. While filming the movie, Bill Murray was said to have antagonized actress Lucy Liu. When watching the film, you'd think that they were all good friends and on good terms, but in reality, that was quite the opposite. The film set was sort of a hostile environment that caused Bill to take a disliking towards Lucy. Turns out Bill would insult Lucy's talent and acting ability, and on one occasion even said, quote, "I get why you're here, you've got talent, but what in the hell are you doing here? You can't act." Apparently the harassment and bullying got so bad at one point that Lucy tried throwing punches at Bill during one scene because his insults got so bad. This antagonizing went on for the entire duration of the production, and Bill kept on berating Lucy about her presence on set and calling her unprofessional as well. This drama was just so unnecessary. And finally, at number 1, Sharon Osbourne. Talk show host Sharon Osbourne faced a lot of backlash last year after making comments about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Sharon and her former co-host Cheryl Underwood got into a pretty heated argument surrounding Piers Morgan's remarks on Meghan Markle. During this feud, Sharon backed up Piers's comments about Meghan Markle's mental health, and this really frustrated a lot of people because many felt as though what was being said was going a little too far. As a result of the remarks that Sharon made, she was called a racist, and a number of other accusations came out about how she's used various slurs in the past when talking about her other co-hosts on the show. As a result of this, the network that they worked for launched an internal investigation to look into the allegations against Sharon, and that ended with Sharon being let go from the show. At number 10, Hugh Grant. Hugh was once banned from The Daily Show after having a really bad interview that really affected the show's host because the actor was being so rude. Jon Stewart, the former host of The Daily Show, said in an interview that Hugh Grant was the absolute worst guest he'd had on the show. He spoke about how when Hugh was on to promote his film Did You Hear About the Morgans, Hugh was making a huge scene backstage and was just being really mean and annoying to the people who were working on set. Apparently, Hugh was allegedly going around saying that he had better places to be. He also got really upset about the clip that they played from the film, saying, quote, "What is that clip? It's a terrible clip," to which Jon replied, telling Hugh to make a better movie. You could really tell that Jon was fed up with Hugh and his attitude on the show. Jon went on to say that because of his poor experience with Hugh, he'd never have him back on his show. At number 9, Harmony Korine. I think it's an unspoken rule that when you're a guest somewhere, you should try to be on your best behavior. One person who really should have followed this rule is director Harmony Korine, who's best known for the movie Spring Breakers. There was once a time when Harmony made a number of appearances on The Late Show with David Letterman in the mid to late 90s. This was also during a time when Harmony was reportedly on a lot of drugs. Though he was a frequent guest on the show, his appearances just stopped all of a sudden, and no one really knew why until 2013 when Letterman revealed the truth as to why the director was banned from coming on the show. Apparently, Letterman caught the director going through Meryl Streep's purse one time, and that was just the last straw for the late night host. When talking about this fateful event, Letterman said, quote, "I went upstairs to greet Meryl Streep and welcome her to the show. I knocked on the door and she was not there. I looked around and saw Harmony going through her purse. True story. And so I said, that's it, put her things back in her bag and get out." End quote. After that, Harmony was no longer welcome on the show and hasn't been back since. Before we carry on talking about these rude celebrities, why not take a moment to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 8, Bobcat Goldthwait. I think this goes without saying, but don't go setting fire to things. Back in 1994, actor Bobcat Goldthwait was a guest on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and during his guest appearance, the actor decided to just randomly set fire to his chair. At the time, Jay thought this was just a spontaneous bit, but in reality, Bobcat came prepared for this as he brought lighter fluid and a lighter that was hidden up his sleeve. Luckily, the other guest who was there that night, Lauren Hutton, was quick on her feet and doused the flames with a cup of water. Jay, understandably, was very unhappy with all this and banned Bobcat from the show. Not only that, but the actor was also charged with arson for this stunt and was ordered to pay over $3,300 in fines, some of which went towards replacing the chair he set fire to. He literally damaged the set, and if that's not rude, then I don't know what is. At number 7, Piers Morgan. I feel like when a celebrity asks for something specific, it should be given to them. I'm not talking about anything material like demanding a cup of ice chips or something. I mean a specific request in reference to the way that they're treated. For actor Kelsey Grammer, he made a very specific request when he was doing an interview with Piers Morgan, and when that request wasn't honored, there was a falling out that led to the actor being banned from the show because of the drama. When the actor made a guest appearance on Piers Morgan Tonight back in 2012, he requested that a picture of his ex-wife not be shown. He's willing to answer questions about her, but just didn't want to have a photo of her to be aired. Well, Piers didn't exactly honor that request, and when a photo of the ex-wife was shown, Kelsey stormed off set. The actor's publicist said that Piers had to take accountability for his actions because Kelsey was so mad about the situation, but instead, Piers barred the actor from his show. That was pretty rude of him. At number 6, Gene Simmons. I think we can all agree that Gene Simmons is kind of outlandish. He's a guy with a lot of energy and no filter, so when it comes to interviewing him live, you never know what he might say, but you can only hope that it won't be too offensive. At one point, the singer was a Fox favorite, making regular appearances on their programming where they would discuss hot topics in the world and would share their opinions on things. They liked the guy and liked having him on their show, but after causing a stir during a meeting at Fox and making some rude comments towards some of the other staff members, Gene got banned for life, and it was a hot topic of its own. Some of the things that Gene said to some of the women at the network got leaked, and it's not something you would want to have said to you. Let's just put it that way. After all of that went down, the singer was not welcomed back on their programming because they didn't like the way he behaved. At number 5, Sharon Osbourne. Talk show host Sharon Osbourne found herself in some hot water earlier last year after she made some comments about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry that not only caused her to get backlash, but also lose a friend. Sharon Osbourne and Cheryl Underwood got into a heated argument surrounding Piers Morgan's comments about Meghan Markle. During this feud, Sharon backed up Piers's comments about Meghan Markle's mental health, and this frustrated Cheryl because she didn't like the comments that were being made about those involved. The two got into a very heated debate that ended with a lot of drama, sparking a conversation about Sharon's ideals. She was called a racist, and a number of other accusations came out about how she's used various slurs in the past when talking about her other co-hosts. As a result of this, the network for their show launched an internal investigation, and that ended with Sharon being let go from the show. At number 4, Kelly Osbourne. Now, we just talked about Sharon Osbourne and her talk show scandal, but her daughter Kelly has also been in her share of controversies, including one that happened while on a talk show that kind of ruined her career because of a rude comment that she made. During an episode of The View, Kelly Osbourne really missed the mark when trying to clap back at Donald Trump, even though she was trying to diss Trump, and ended up getting in enough trouble herself. Just shortly before this episode aired, Donald Trump, who was at the time only a presidential nominee, was saying offensive things about the Latinx community and how he wanted to deport them. I'm sure we're all familiar with this one. Well, in a very poor attempt at clapping back at Trump's racist comments, Kelly said, quote, "If you kick every Latina out of this country, then who's going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?" What Kelly was trying to do was defend the Latinx community, but rather than stand up for them, she ended up offending them even more, as her remarks were interpreted as saying that the Latinx community is only good for being housekeepers, as depicted in many racial stereotypes. After facing so much backlash and realizing the gravity of her words, Kelly issued an apology saying, quote, "I want to start by saying I always take responsibility for my actions. In this particular case, I will take responsibility for my poor choice of words, but I will not apologize for being a racist, as I am not." At number 3, James Corden. Recently, TV host James Corden found himself in some trouble with fans after his Spill Your Guts segment of his show started facing backlash. Fans were calling for James to take accountability after he made some comments about some Asian foods that he had on the show that some fans thought were offensive. Because the foods that they use in the Spill Your Guts segment are supposed to be ones that you wouldn't eat, the fact that some Asian foods like balut were used and called, quote, "disgusting," made a lot of people take to the internet to call for accountability and an apology from James Corden. Apparently, James had been making these types of comments about a lot of different Asian dishes on a few occasions, so some people have said enough is enough and even created a petition calling for the removal of the Spill Your Guts segment. At number 2, Mark Summers. When it comes to talk shows, sometimes you can never predict what's gonna happen. These shows are often used to catch up with a celebrity and just talk about life and whatnot, but sometimes these conversations can turn into brawls when the wrong thing is said, and this is pretty much what happened between Burt Reynolds and Mark Summers in 1994 when they were both guests on Jay Leno's talk show. The two men got into a heated brawl after some jokes were made that offended the both of them. Essentially, Mark Summers made a comment about how he was still married, while Burt at the time was going through a divorce, and it made Burt pretty upset. In retaliation, Burt threw some water at Mark, and that's what sparked the fight. It gets to the point where Jay Leno just can't keep the show together because his guests were fighting so much, and producers even went so far as to bring out pies for Mark and Burt to make it look like this fight was staged. After this, people got talking, and some people came to the conclusion that this brawl was uncalled for, and since Mark started it, he felt the most backlash. And finally, at number 1, Ellen. In late 2019, actress Dakota Johnson sat down for an interview with Ellen, and some people see this interview as the one that started this whole Ellen is mean scandal because of how rude Ellen was. During the interview, Ellen berated Dakota about the fact that she wasn't invited to Dakota's birthday party. People saw this whole debate as incredibly unnecessary, but the part that people loved the most was how Dakota shut Ellen down. When Ellen said that she was mad for not being invited to Dakota's birthday party, Dakota in response said, quote, "Actually no, that's not the truth, Ellen, you were invited. No, last time when I was on the show last year, you gave me a bunch of crap about not inviting you, but I didn't even know you wanted to be invited," end quote. Dakota was even backed up by one of the show's producers who reassured Ellen that she was invited and that she just didn't show up because at the time, she claimed that Dakota's Malibu party was, quote, "a little too far for her." Dakota shutting Ellen down and not being made to look like the bad guy Ellen intended was great for fans, and following Ellen's cancellation, fans started to realize just how rude Ellen was.
And at number 10, Oprah. This is one that was incredibly shocking to me because Oprah is one of the most beloved people in the world, and other celebrities are constantly singing her praises, sharing how down-to-earth and nice Oprah is in real life. But it seems that Oprah might act a little differently when the cameras are not rolling, or when she's not talking to another celebrity. A waiter that served Oprah for lunch shared their eye-rolling encounter with the TV host. They wrote on Reddit, quote, "Oprah didn't tip me on a $200 lunch. Instead, she signed a napkin for me and acted like she was doing me a huge favor. The kicker was when she walked in, they gave away all of my other tables so she didn't have to wait for anything. So I made $4 an hour for 2 hours for the privilege of serving Oprah." And she went on and on about signing a napkin that I never even asked for. It still makes me so mad when I hear that celebrities do not tip. Like, Oprah is a billionaire. She can afford to tip. It's so outrageous. And at number 9, Chevy Chase. This one is less of a shock because it's well known that Chevy Chase is not the greatest guy, although he plays lovable characters on screen. Many of his former SNL castmates have spoken out against him, and he was even banned from the show for his problematic behavior. One Reddit user shared that he is just as awful in real life. They wrote, quote, "I saw Chevy Chase at a hotel once as a small 9-year-old, and I love the National Lampoon's Vacation movies. When I asked for his autograph, he verbally went off on me. When my dad came over, he went off on him. He said something messed up, which is that my dad wasn't raising me right. The dude is a straight up jerk." And at number 8, Randy Jackson. Randy Jackson is another star I only ever heard good things about. He was known for being the good guy on American Idol compared to Simon Cowell, who was notoriously savage towards contestants. But this might be another case of a celebrity being completely two-faced, acting nice and friendly while on camera, but being completely different when cameras are not rolling. One Reddit user shared a behind-the-scenes look at Randy during a children's hospital event. Quote, "Randy Jackson was invited to a telethon hosted by a hospital for children with disabilities, where my little sister lived until she passed away. Whenever the cameras were off, he'd hide in his hotel room and seem disgusted with the kids. He didn't want anything to do with them. When the cameras were on though, he was all smiles and hugs. It was so disheartening and disappointing to witness. It was over 10 years ago and I still remember it to this day." And at number 7, Carrie Underwood. This one honestly breaks my heart. This person, who has seen a ton of celebrities in their workplace, said that Carrie Underwood was by far the worst. They wrote, quote, "I worked as a maintenance worker at a concert venue for a few summers and I bumped into several celebrities. But Carrie Underwood is the one who sticks out because of how demanding she always was. She refused to use a toilet if someone else had sat on the seat before her, so we had to buy new toilet seats every time she came. Considering how much we already had to fix, the last thing we wanted to do was pointlessly replace perfectly good toilet seats. In contrast, Reba McEntire would always eat lunch with the staff and was always super chill." Can you imagine how entitled you have to be to demand like a new toilet basically? I cannot believe the venue agreed to do that for her. And at number 6, Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry is a famous actor and producer that fans might not know that much about. However, many celebrities have shared just how open-hearted and kind that he is. Specifically, when Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were being interviewed by Oprah Winfrey after leaving the royals, they shared that they were on the verge of being homeless with no security. However, Tyler Perry offered them his LA home to live in, along with giving them security until they were able to work it out. What an amazing guy, right? Well, apparently he doesn't treat normal people as nice. A person who worked to promote Perry's movie Boo! A Madea Halloween in 2016 shared his strange behavior and long list of demands. Apparently Perry flew private to the event with 13 of his staff. They were all forced in the back of the plane while he had the entire front to himself. They added, quote, "His team sent our local agency a long list of demands and rules in anticipation of his arrival. Tyler wanted to be addressed referred to as Mr. Perry. We were prohibited to speak to him directly, only to his team. Room temperature orange Gatorade had to be in his green room. Furniture wasn't allowed in his press interview suite. All media and press had to travel to him. Mr. Perry would not leave the hotel, and he wouldn't wait for anyone." The person added that his entire team seemed terrified of him. Halfway number 5, Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj is a celebrity with mixed reviews. Tons of people say she's down to earth and loves her fans, while others have shared some negative experiences with the star. One person shared their experience working with Minaj on set, writing, quote, "I worked with Nicki Minaj before, and while on a set with her, I was told not to look her in the face. She also had people move out of the room before she would come in the room. It was a whole ordeal." And at number 4, Miles Teller. Miles Teller being on this list should not be a shock to anyone, because he is constantly called out for his horrible behavior. Even reporters that have interviewed him have called him entitled and rude. He's even trashed well-loved and respected actors like John Cusack. When a reporter told him they are similar actors, Teller replied, quote, "I guess we look alike. We did some similar movies. He wasn't traditionally good looking, who was offbeat and quirky but confident. I get it, but I don't want his career." And people who have met him in real life have had similar experiences. They wrote, quote, "I met Miles Teller at a bar. He told my friend to buy him a drink and he still refused to take a picture with him. He ended up smacking my phone out of my hand hand, and I'll never watch a movie with him in it again. And number 3, Jim Belushi. One fan shared just how terrible Jim Belushi was to them after they waited hours for an autograph. To make it worse, one of Belushi's co-stars was incredibly nice and made the contrast even worse. They wrote, quote, "Years ago us kids waited for Jim Belushi and John Candy after they shot Only the Lonely in Chicago. Asked Belushi for an autograph and he literally called us a bunch of pieces of stupid kids and to get the F out of there. Then came Candy with a big old smile and a cigar hanging out of his mouth, and he spent the next 10 minutes signing autographs and thanking all of his fans." And at number 2, Alec Baldwin. Given all the scandals that Alec Baldwin has been in, it's no surprise that he's notoriously rude. He's attacked paparazzi, gotten in physical fights with hecklers, and he's been known to be very arrogant. One Reddit user spoke of their interaction and wrote, quote, "One day in the Hamptons I ran into Alec Baldwin and his wife and their 2 dogs. I was 6, so I wanted to pet their dogs. Mind you, they left their dogs outside of the store so I didn't know they were theirs. They quickly yanked their dogs away from me and yelled at me. I was 6. That just proves the kind of people they are. I mean, who gets mad at a kid for petting a dog that you left outside? And finally, number 1, Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons is apparently so awful in real life, multiple Reddit users shared negative experiences with him. One user said, quote, "My brother met Gene Simmons backstage at a show he was playing in. Gene complimented my brother highly on his guitar playing, but then said, quote, 'Too bad you'll never make it,' and just walked away." Another person told the story of his dad running into Simmons after one of his Kiss shows. The dad complimented Simmons on the show, and he replied, quote, "I hope the next time you're sucking to impress someone you pucker up more," and then walked off. My dad was pissed and told his friends it was time to go, and the bartender stopped them on their way out. Before he left, Gene and his entourage told the bartender that my dad was paying for their drinks. It cost my dad almost $100 to pay for their alcohol. Whoopi Goldberg was just suspended from The View after she made some controversial comments about the treatment of Jewish people during the Second World War. This has caused fans to look into her past, and it's clear this was not the first time we were warned about Whoopi Goldberg. First up, Meghan McCain. Following Whoopi's controversial comments on the Holocaust, her former co-host on The View, Meghan McCain, decided to share her disappointment with the comments. For a refresher, the women were talking about the book Mouse and how it was banned in school in Tennessee. The book talks about the Second World War and what it was like to be Jewish during that terrifying time. Amid the debate about the book, Whoopi decided to share her opinion and argued that the quote, "Holocaust wasn't about race," saying, quote, "If you're going to do this, now let's be truthful about it because the Holocaust wasn't about race. No, it's not about race." Joy Behar then clapped back, saying that the German leaders discriminated against the Jews because they felt they were a different race. Goldberg countered that it was not about race, rather, quote, "about man's inhumanity to man." Anna Navarro then chimed in saying it was about white supremacy and going after Jews and gypsies, though Goldberg doubled down and stated that, quote, "These are 2 white groups of people," which in her mind meant it was not about race. Following the episode, viewers were outraged at Whoopi's comments and called them dangerous and ignorant because she is completely wrong. Goldberg apologized on the episode the following day and read a statement from a member of the Anti-Defamation League, which stated that attacks on the Jewish people only happened because the Germans deemed them to be an inferior race. McCain decided to share her thoughts on Twitter as the scandal was unfolding, and she condemned Goldberg's remarks. She wrote, quote, "I hate commenting on my old employer because I have moved on in every way a person can move on. That being said, I am an activist against anti-Semitism, and it's a big part of my life. The growing threat is real and everywhere. I am heartbroken about what was said." McCain called the comments bizarre, incoherent, and even dangerous in a column she later wrote for the Daily Mail. Adding, quote, "I'm not calling for Whoopi Goldberg to be fired, if only because I don't believe there is any universe where she could possibly do anything that could get her fired. She's the crown jewel of The View and a pop culture icon," and continued that she wanted the show to instead use this as a teaching moment to explain to viewers why she was wrong. McCain also wrote, quote, "Instead of half-assed apologies and bringing in experts in the anti-Semitism space, maybe dedicate an entire Hot Topic segment to discussing why what was said was so deeply offensive and dangerous." Instead of listening to McCain's idea, the network instead decided to suspend Whoopi for 2 weeks, which many felt is not a punishment and actually just a cop-out that will take attention off the situation. Next up, Bella Thorne. Whoopi Goldberg got in a feud with Bella Thorne of all people because the women of The View decided to talk about Bella Thorne leaking her own intimate photos after hackers threatened to do it without her consent in 2019. Intimate photos of celebrities leaked to the public is becoming a more common occurrence, with hackers able to hack into cell phones easier than ever. But Bella decided to do things differently and took control of the narrative instead of letting the hackers control her. Whoopi not only had a problem with Thorne's decision to publish the photos, she thought they should have never been taken in the first place, saying, quote, "If you're famous, I don't care how old you are, you don't take pictures of yourself." Many felt this mindset blamed Bella for her decision rather than blaming the hackers for invading her privacy. Bella responded back on Twitter, writing, quote, "Dear Whoopi, I have loved you for so long, but honestly I'm so displeased and saddened by your response to my leak. Blaming girls for taking the photo in the first place is sick and honestly disgusting." Adding, quote, "Your view on this matter is honestly awful and I hope you change your mindset as you are a show talking to young girls." George Bush. One of the worst moments in Whoopi's career happened after she made an offensive joke about former President Bush that got her blacklisted from the industry. At the Kerry fundraiser at Radio City Music Hall, Whoopi said a joke relating the president's last name to a woman's pubic hair, saying, quote, "We should keep Bush where he belongs." Whoopi said this while gesturing to her crotch, quote, "and not in the White House." The backlash started almost immediately, and Slim Fast removed her from its ad campaign in the days after. A statement from the company said, quote, "We are disappointed by the manner in which Ms. Goldberg chose to express herself and sincerely regret her recent remarks offended some of our consumers." Whoopi responded to Slim Fast in her own statement, saying, quote, "While I can appreciate what the Slim Fast people need to do in order to protect their business, I must also do what I need to do as an artist, as a writer, and as an American, not to mention as a comic." The Democratic National Convention also uninvited Whoopi from its 2004 events. Meanwhile, her acting job stopped coming for several years. Whoopi claimed in an interview that the joke greatly affected her career, and she was blacklisted for years after the scandal. She recently described this period to the New York Times Magazine, quote, "For a good 3 years, I couldn't even get arrested." Her acting credits during these years are the smallest in her career. Bill Cosby. Goldberg got a ton of heat after she decided to defend Bill Cosby when the first allegations came out against him. On a 2014 episode of The View, when actress Barbara Bowman spoke about her claims, Whoopi responded, quote, "Quite honestly, having been on both sides of this, where people allege that you do something, it doesn't matter now, people have something in their head. I have a lot of questions for the lady, maybe she'll come forward." She also said the allegations would be more believable if the women would have come forward earlier and not waited so long, continuing that she is not going to make a judgment until she has all the facts. Many women did not like this, as it goes against the "believe all women" mantra that most women abide by in these situations. Then after lots of pushback, she later changed her opinion in 2015, saying she could no longer believe that Cosby was innocent until proven guilty. Adding, quote, "If this is to be tried in the court of public opinion, I gotta say all of the information that's out there kinda points to guilt." Ray Rice. Another person that she controversially defended was NFL player Ray Rice in 2014. Rice was a topic of discussion on The View after his wife claimed that he hit her. Whoopi decided to defend Rice's actions after she learned that his wife hit Rice first. Whoopi said, quote, "If you make the choice as a woman who is 4'3" and you decide to hit a guy who is 6 foot tall and you're the last thing he wants to deal with that day and he hits you back, you cannot be surprised." Adding, quote, "I know I'm going to catch a lot of hell, but I don't care. You have to teach women, do not live with this idea that men have this chivalry thing still with them. Don't assume that's still in place." Goldberg had similar thoughts after Solange was seen hitting Jay-Z in an elevator. Whoopi believed that Jay-Z would not have gotten any flack if he had decided to retaliate, saying, quote, "I think Solange was quite ready for him to do whatever he was going to do. This is the thing, if anybody hits you, you have the right. I know that many people are raised in a different way, but if a woman hits you, to me, you have the right to hit her back." Goldberg added that if I slap a man, he has every right to slap me back. Of course, these statements were widely condemned, with many believing that a man should never put hands on a woman, regardless of the circumstances. And finally, Whoopi herself. Now that Whoopi is in a scandal dealing with anti-Semitism, people have been looking into her past and many are concerned about the origins of her stage name. If you didn't already know, Whoopi Goldberg is not her real name. It's actually Karen Elaine Johnson. We know the name Whoopi came because she's known for her flatulence. Videos of Goldberg passing gas are all over YouTube, so it's not surprising to find out that her first name is an homage to the whoopee cushion. When speaking about her name, she told NBC News that she was lucky she had gotten the name Whoopi versus Stinky, since she's known for the sound and not the smell. However, the second part of her stage name is where the controversy starts. Whoopi chose the last name Goldberg because she wanted to sound more Jewish. Her and her mother believed that having a Jewish last name would help her to get roles, which gives into the dangerous stereotypes that Jewish people control the media, which is far from the truth and is the cause of a lot of anti-Jewish rhetoric. During an interview with Vulture, Whoopi said, quote, "So you have people who say, well, why is your name Whoopi Goldberg? You just want to be a white woman? It's like, no, I've been black the whole time." Goldberg has said that she has some Jewish ancestry and that she took her surname from a faraway relative. However, she did admit that her mother preferred the name Goldberg to Johnson when she wanted to get into Hollywood. Goldberg's mother reportedly thought her middle name Johnson wasn't, quote, Jewish enough for her to succeed in Hollywood. First up, Jay Moore. Jay Moore threw some serious shade Jennifer Aniston's way when he accused her of being mad that she had to play his love interest in a movie. Basically, she felt that casting could have gotten a more attractive person to act alongside her. It started in 2010 when Elle asked him what his most awkward interaction with a female celebrity was. He responded, not giving names, but describing a situation when an actress got very angry after learning that Moore was playing her love interest in a movie. Apparently, after she learned the news, she said, quote, "You've got to be kidding me," right to his face. That interaction led Moore to, quote, "go to my mom's house and cry." He was specifically asked if the woman he was talking about was Jennifer Aniston because she was his love interest in the 1997 film Picture Perfect. Moore said, quote, "I will never ever answer that." But shortly after, he did answer who he was talking about. While on his More Stories podcast, he confirmed it was Aniston after all. He claimed she went up to him, pointed at him, and yelled, quote, "6 guys they screen test. 6. The one effing guy I hate, this is the guy they hired. Him." Apparently, this kind of berating went on for an entire day, and she kept trash-talking him to other people, including their mutual co-stars. In summary, he said that she was so mean to him, and it clearly left a huge impact. So much so that he will not stop bringing it up. In 2016, during a Sports Illustrated interview, he was asked what was more satisfying, kissing Jen Aniston or firing Tom Cruise's character in Jerry Maguire. Moore answered, quote, "Without question, firing Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is hotter." Probably not the answer that most people were expecting. John Mayer. Most of Jennifer Aniston's ex-boyfriends have nothing but good things to say about her. However, John Mayer took some not-so-subtle digs during an interview after their split. Mayer's 2010 interview with Playboy is pretty infamous in the celebrity world for being one of the shadiest ever, and revealing things he probably should have kept secret, things including some shady digs toward Jen. In the interview, he accused Jen of being someone who is not good with technology, and even refuses to learn new ways to do things, saying, quote, "If Jennifer Aniston knows how to use BitTorrent, I'll eat my effing shoe." While Mayer was getting into Twitter and other social media platforms, he claimed that Aniston was keeping herself away from technological advances. He added, quote, "The brunt of her success came before TMZ and Twitter. I think she's still hoping it goes back to 1998. He even brought up their age difference. Aniston was older by 8 years, saying, quote, "I can't change the fact that I need to be 32. Joan Rivers. The late comedian was not known to keep her opinions to herself, and she didn't hold back about her negative feelings toward Jennifer Aniston. In a 2011 interview, Rivers said about Aniston, quote, "I would like to take Jennifer Aniston and put her hair over her effing face. I'm so bored with her and her stupid movies. They're all the same. I don't know how they get financed." Then when she was asked who she doesn't want to see on the Oscars red carpet, Rivers replied, "Jennifer Aniston. Quote, I don't want to see Jennifer Aniston say, boo hoo hoo, Brad Pitt left me, get the F over it." In her book Joan Rivers Confidential, Rivers made another savage comment about Jen. Quote, "Even if Jennifer does become pregnant, Angelina Jolie will get the baby." Kristen Stewart. It's not clear if this is just a rumor or not, but gossip magazine The National Enquirer claimed they had good reason to believe that Kristen Stewart does not like Jennifer Aniston. Back in 2013, Kristen Stewart was allegedly annoyed that Aniston was getting a lot more press than her. The source who shared this claimed it was clear that Kristen was jealous of Jen. At the time, Stewart was struggling with confidence issues and could not understand why Aniston managed to, quote, "hog the headlines every time with little effort." Stewart apparently also added that Aniston's feud with Angelina Jolie gave her a huge bump in the press, and nobody would have cared about her otherwise. The source added that Kristen Stewart said, quote, "If it wasn't for her bitter rivalry with Angelina, Jen would not be this famous these days at all." Again, take this one with a grain of salt, but I'm sure Stewart is not the only person with these feelings. Tim Gunn. Tim Gunn is another person who does not hold back their feelings, and that was no exception in the case of Jennifer Aniston. After her 2008 split from John Mayer, Gunn felt she was completely desperate and would continue with her trope of playing the victim. At a launch party event, he said about Aniston, quote, "Sometimes I think she has a desperate character written on her," adding, "The clothes we wear send a message. I think that's the message. I don't think it's her intention though." Clearly, Gunn thinks her perpetual victim card is all an act, and she's really just desperate for attention. Bill O'Reilly. Aniston and Bill O'Reilly got into a strange feud after Aniston made some comments about children while promoting her 2010 movie, The Switch. For a summary on the movie, Aniston's character wants to have a child, and because she is single, she decides to get a sperm donor and has a child with that donor's help, clearly showing a new take on motherhood in the modern era. While promoting the film, she said that, quote, "Times have changed when it comes to the way that people think about family." Aniston added that single motherhood is quite beautiful because there are children that don't have homes that have a home and can be loved, and that's extremely important. She obviously wasn't intending to start a controversy with these comments, but she did anyways when Fox News host Bill O'Reilly trashed her comments on the O'Reilly factor. He said that her comments told young women that their children don't need fathers, which would be destructive to our society. Aniston, who doesn't usually comment on this stuff, decided to clap back, saying, quote, "I never actually thought my name and that name would ever be in one sentence." She added that she only responded to the ridiculous comments because they insulted the women that are out there doing this on their own. Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan shared his disdain for Jennifer Aniston after he felt that she was overly emotional during a Q&A segment. In 2016, she answered the question if she ever doubted herself by saying, quote, "We're all human beings at the end of the day," while wiping tears from her eyes, voice quivering, adding, quote, "Don't punish yourself if you feel that." Fans love the genuine moment because it's a great feeling knowing that even celebrities have their fair share of bad times. But Piers did not take kindly to her vulnerability and felt it was completely fake. So the following week on Good Morning Britain, Morgan claimed that she was, quote, "self-wallowing and needed to get a grip," adding, quote, "Nobody forced Aniston to do her naked magazine shoots," then reminding her that her problems don't really matter because half of the world is starving. Then later in 2016, he also took the time to respond to an article that Aniston wrote trashing the media, where she shared how she was fed up with body shaming and scrutiny that she received. Morgan responded that she should dismount that high horse. In 2017, Aniston responded to that by saying, quote, "You're always going to have the Piers Morgans of the world contradicting something that comes from the heart and saying you're a hypocrite." The Friends cast. Even though the cast of Friends make it seem like they always got along perfectly, that was not always the case, and there was a point in time where the entire Friends cast hated Jen Aniston. When the show was really taking off, it was clear that fans and the media loved Jen's character the most, and she was getting the most press for everything, including her signature haircut. Her female co-stars got very jealous of all the attention, and that translated into real-life feelings. Courtney Cox and Lisa Kudrow were described as, quote, "very jealous of Jen." The source added, quote, "Everyone wanted to interview Jen, and her Rachel's hair became such a phenomenon that was the only thing people talked about. They were supposed to be a team, but all anyone cared about was Jen and her stupid hair. It got very annoying." And it was not only the women in the group that had a problem with Jen. The men also were not fond of her either. The source continued, quote, "The boys gave her a hard time," claiming that Matthew Perry and Matt LeBlanc also made mean-spirited jokes at Jen's expense. They felt that she thought that she was better than they were. Thankfully for Aniston, the tension did not last long, and the cast united together to negotiate salaries of $1 million per episode each. After they won the compensation battle, things simmered. Quote, "They eventually realized the whole fame thing was out of their hands, and they grew up and grew closer as a cast. And now the cast remain good friends to this day. It was even alleged that Matthew Perry and Aniston had a fling back in the day."
At number 5, Nick Jonas. Now, even though Nick is part of the Jonas Brothers, he did, in a way, warn their fans about the band. As you will probably recall, the band was together back in the 2000s when they were on the Disney Channel, but the band ended up breaking up back in 2013. At the time, a lot of fans were curious as to why they split. I mean, they were brothers after all, so what happened? Well, Nick ended up sharing some details about what happened, the drama and conflict included in their falling out, and warned fans about what things were like for them behind the scenes. In an interview with Wonderland magazine, Nick shared that the pressures that were put on the band were causing the boys to become emotionally strained, and this started causing tension in the family. Elaborating on this, Nick told the magazine, quote, "There was definitely a strain emotionally that was being put on all of us. We had such a specific way of doing things for so long, and I think as we got older, we tried to progress artistically. We got stuck in those old ways, so our music suffered, and our general vibe with each other and ability to communicate in a healthy way no longer existed." Nick was actually the one who pitched the idea that the band break up, and this also caused some tension within the band, but Nick felt as though this was necessary in order to save their relationship as brothers. In a way, he warned fans about what life was really like for the brothers and how their careers had taken such a huge toll on their personal lives. No one really saw this breakup coming, but after the this interview, it made so much more sense. Luckily for fans though, Nick was also the one who got the band back together so we could relive the good times from the career and also grow with them too. At number 4, Portugal the Man. When the Jonas Brothers got back together, there was a lot of buzz from fans and in Hollywood. The Jo Bros had returned and they dropped a banger to make their comeback, a song called Sucker. Though it was a huge hit, the song also ended up causing a bit of a scandal because they were accused of stealing the song from another group, a band called Portugal the Man. The song that the Jonas Brothers were accused of stealing was the song Feel It Still by Portugal the Man, which, side note, is a very good song. Anyways, there is a mashup online of both Sucker and Feel It Still that shows just how similar they are, and I have to say it's a little scary. Sucker just sounds like a sped up version of Feel It Still. When this scandal came out, fans on Twitter were talking about the song's similarities, accusing the Jonas Brothers of plagiarism and making memes about it. Though Portugal the Man came out and said that they weren't mad at the Jo Bros and that they had no problem with their song Sucker, this little scandal kind of warned fans about the brothers' content and how they create it. No one really knows if this whole thing was deliberate or just a coincidence, but it did sort of set a tone for the brothers' reunion, and starting off with a scandal certainly wasn't great. Before we carry on talking about the people who tried to expose the Jonas Brothers and reveal their true nature to their fans, why not take a moment to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 3, Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato and Nick Jonas were once very close. They had worked together while on the Disney Channel, Demi had dated Joe Jonas for a while, and they were just the best of friends. But all of a sudden they sort of broke up, and this may have served as a warning to fans about the potential drama between Demi and Nick. The two of them had a pretty good friendship, so no one noticed when things became strained. There have been reports saying that they haven't spoken since 2017 because they had a falling out. In 2018, fans noticed that Nick and Demi had unfollowed each other on social media, but things really came to a head when it came time for Nick Jonas and Priyanka Chopra's wedding. Apparently, Demi wasn't invited to the wedding, and this really affected them. When news started coming out about Nick and Priyanka's wedding, many fans just assumed that Demi wasn't attending the wedding because they weren't up to partying, especially since at the time Demi had just been hospitalized, but it turns out that Demi just was not invited to begin with. Sources close to Demi said that they were devastated to not have been invited to Nick's wedding, saying that their heart was broken after that. We don't really know where the two of them stand anymore, and last we've heard, they just aren't speaking to each other anymore. Maybe one day we will see them rekindle their friendship, or perhaps they just aren't meant to be in each other's lives. This falling out could be a warning to fans about the Jonas Brothers because something clearly had to have happened for this falling out to have occurred, so maybe there was some beef and toxicity that fans just weren't aware of. At number 2, Taylor Swift and Gigi Hadid. Speaking of falling out, we have to talk about Joe Jonas's relationship drama and how this could have served as a warning about how Joe is in relationships. I mean, after learning about this drama with Taylor and Gigi Hadid, you can definitely see that Joe has grown a lot since this all unfolded, so this is more so a warning about how Joe used to be. Anyways, as some of you might recall, Joe Jonas and Taylor Swift dated for a hot minute back in the day, but things ended up getting a little messy and caused some drama between a handful of people. When Joe and Taylor dated, the breakup didn't really go well because Taylor was dumped over the phone in a call that lasted less than 30 seconds. Ouch. This ended up working pretty well for fans because, as we all know, Taylor channels all of her feelings into her music, and that breakup music always hits. Fast forward a few years to when Joe dated Gigi Hadid. This relationship happened just before she got with Zayn Malik, and clearly things did not end well for Joe either. This time, Gigi was the one to break things off, and Joe did not take it very well because he ended up writing a revenge song about it for his band DNCE. Joe's actions in his past relationships could have served as a warning about how he is in relationships and during breakups. The way he handled all of this could sort of come across as cold, which doesn't really paint Joe as a very nice guy, but as I've said before, Joe has certainly grown since then, since he's now a husband and father. And finally, at number 1, Frankie Jonas. Now last on our list, let's talk about the youngest Jonas brother, Frankie Jonas. Though he wasn't part of the band, he did have a minor amount of fame, but nowhere near the level of fame that his older brothers have. For years, Frankie was known to fans as the bonus Jonas, and though it has a catchy name, Frankie never liked being called that. The fact that the band gave their brother this name and called him that so often could have served as a warning that the brothers might not be as nice as they seem. Frankie was often often compared to his brothers as a kid, and since his brothers were so famous, people kind of bullied Frankie for not being as good or as talented as the other Jonas brothers. Frankie opened up about how the Bonus Jonas moniker affected him growing up, saying that it took a toll on him. In an interview with Bustle, Frankie told sources, quote, "It became a form of self-harm to look at these things. It became essentially an OCD, like a tic. I couldn't stop. I checked it every day, and I had to feel okay in a way. It became a serious issue for me. A lot of that perpetrated the idea that I was just this meme. I was this joke, and my entire identity to people was adjacent, which really affected myself and the way that I thought about the world and the way I thought about myself." End quote. Although his brother Joe has said that he refuses to call Frankie the Bonus Jonas after learning about how this makes his little brother feel, they also never publicly defended their brother either. Frankie is now a star in his own right, having blown up on TikTok, but he did it without the help of his brothers. You would think that the band would have stood up for their brother more, and the fact that they let so much slide shows that maybe they just didn't care enough.